Welcome to this episode of Level with Emily, featuring a conversation with Lifeformed, aka Terrence, and Janice Kwan about their music for Tunic. Tunic came out in 2022. You play a fox in this action-adventure situation. It's adorable and wonderful. And the music is great. I absolutely love the blend of synths and acoustic piano in this soundtrack. Absolutely fabulous. Terrence and Janice are married. They both play keyboards, and they both write their own music individually in addition to composing together on games and outside of games. So they're just terrific. I loved talking to these two. One note, I do misname one of the tracks. At one point, I call it Carbon Forest, but it's called Carbon Harvest, just so you know that. And you'll get to meet some of Terrence and Janice's cats, who make themselves known pretty early on. It's a great reason, of course, to be watching this right here on YouTube. But you don't hear music here in this version. You can only hear the music in the audio version of Level with Emily. So make sure you get that wherever you get your podcasts. All right, join us on Discord. And also don't forget to subscribe and get notifications. Give us a like, all that stuff here on YouTube. And thanks so much for being here. Here are Lifeformed, Terrence, and Janice talking about their music for Tunic.
Tunic is like... Okay, how to describe Tunic? I haven't had to describe Tunic before. It's a top-down isometric adventure game where you play as a little fox and you're exploring this really mysterious world, and you're just trying to figure out why you're there and what's in the world. And it seems very cute, but then like it goes under the surface into something a bit more mysterious and dark.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely reflected in the music because it starts in one vein and goes to many different places, which is one of the most enjoyable things about it. So describe the style of music then that you went for, and also is that a cat in the background playing with the toy? They can totally keep doing it. I just want people to know what it is.
We'll just close the door.
They can keep playing, but that's so hilarious. Like the second we start.
They just sleep all day, and then as soon as you need the quiet, they just start.
Exactly. All right. So yeah, the style of Tunic. How did you? And clearly, that's a style of music that you compose in anyway. So I'm just curious how that all happened.
Well, it took place. Making the music took place over quite a long period of time, like 7 years from the first track to the last. And I think it, like personally, I learned a lot over that time, and I like adapted and tried new things. So it kind of evolved over those years, and which is interesting because I think because the game had such a large soundtrack too that like at least for me, since I know like the order of tracks I made it in, I can kind of feel the progression of them, and we were able to take advantage of that by matching those changes with the way the game kind of changes in tone. And because before that, I was trying to move my music into like a more sample-based, like atmospheric type of production, and then when Janice joined and started working on it too, then we like really embraced that and like started recording a lot of samples. I'm going to move the other cat. I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. This is the best. This is the best. I love it.
You can... Well, she's going to keep crying.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Baby girl. All right.
Just needs her attention.
Yeah.
Yes, got to keep them happy. You got to. It's our job to give them their best life possible. That's how I look at it. It's it's a pleasure to be able to do that for a little creature. So yeah,
it is.
Yes. Well, I mean, I love synth. Talk to me about composing together, because Janice, on your Bandcamp, you have a bunch of piano sketches, which I love that you put those up, because that's so fun. So talk to me about the process of how you two come up with making a track together.
I guess when we first started working together, we did make an album together before, but that was very much like from a distance, where I would write something and send it to him, then he'd write something back with that, and then that was it. We didn't really like revise it in any way. But on Tunic, I think when we got into the flow of working together, we would each kind of work on concepts, like sketches, and then pass it off to the other person and see what they thought or if they felt anything. And I think that was one of the best parts of working together, was knowing that there was a little less pressure, because you could write something and then see if somebody else felt anything from it, and then if they could take it somewhere, and then knowing that they would throw it back to you. And so that was
it was
like that for a bit.
It was a little challenging at first, because we were trying to figure out, like, how do you I think for the music we make, like, it's important for us to feel a sense of ownership of it, and a feel of like this is like a part of who you are. And in a collaboration, that can be tricky because you have two people on it. So do you just like both put an equal amount into it, or do you have one person take the lead? And at the start, we weren't really sure, so we were just kind of doing whatever came up. But eventually, it kind of became clear that it was really beneficial when one of us would like feel a lot more strongly about a track, and then the other would make room for it. Because there's a few times when we both like thought we were like the main person on a track, but then like we had when we disagreed, then it was like really hard to figure out what to do. But that was part of the learning process. And then once we found the right rhythm, then I think we had a lot of like give and take, and like we could each kind of shine where we felt excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you both, okay, so, because I love the blend with the acoustic piano. So I'm so curious about, your musical backgrounds and who plays what primarily, or if maybe you both primarily play acoustic piano, or how that all works. So do you mind just letting me know how you started musically, and then, how that happened?
For me, my parents made me learn piano at an early age, and I didn't like doing it, and so I quit. But then I realized like I really did enjoy playing piano. I just didn't like being forced to. So then eventually I like started playing a little bit on my own, and then in college I got a MIDI controller because I thought it was just like a simple keyboard, but it turns out you need to like hook it up to a computer and like get all the software for it. So that's when I started to like poke around and get interested in music production and electronic music. That's most of my background on it. I mostly just played piano and the computer, like any type of production using a MIDI controller.
Yeah.
But Janice has a lot more experience with acoustics.
I started piano when I was young too, but I really liked it and I wanted to play it. And I mean, up to a point. I mean, you get to a point where you're just like practicing and it's just hard and not that fun. But for the most part, I would find things that I did like playing, and then I just really liked almost any instrument. So if I had the opportunity to learn one, I would learn one. So in I did do like a little bit of flute, and then in school band I did some trumpet, and then I think in university I took my electives in music as well, just to broaden the sound palette. And I felt like my rhythm was really lacking, so I took some rhythm courses, but it still really lacking.
Nope.
And yeah,
Voice.
and some guitar and stuff like that. Yeah.
Voice. Singing. You didn't mention singing.
Wow. That's I love that you did flute and trumpet were your first two to branch off from piano, because they're so obviously so different, right? So was it kind of like in your mind those specific instruments, or was it I want to play a woodwind and I'm going to try flute, I want to try a brass instrument, I want to play trumpet? You know what I mean?
With the flute, I saw someone playing it on TV, like in some sort of concert, and I thought it sounded really nice, so I wanted to try it.
Okay.
And then with trumpet, I actually wanted to learn strings for school music, but at the time there was like older grades in our like attendance class, and they would bring out their trumpets, and then the buttons look so soft. So I decided I would play trumpet so I could push the buttons.
It's the best reason anyone's ever said for playing trumpet.
I've never really, I wasn't like drawn to the trumpet in sound anyway. I didn't really know any trumpet music, so I just wanted it. Yeah.
It is, as a trumpet player, it's very satisfying, that action. It's just smooth action, yes.
Do you play the trumpet?
I do. I haven't for a very long time, but yeah, that was my thing. But I studied it, and it sounds like you said something a few minutes ago that caught my attention too, because you said you took music as your electives in university. Does that mean you did not study music primarily in university?
No, I did for a brief moment. I did do a little bit of piano. But I kind of switched majors, and then I was just doing a liberal arts major at that point, and just did music. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I don't mean to dig so much into your personal life. It just, it's fascinating to me. Well, let's go back to Tunic. We can talk more about all of that stuff later if we choose, but I want to talk about some specific tracks if we could as well. I have so many favorites, and there's flute in here too, right? I mean, I've definitely heard flute in there. But one of the things I love is something you described right off the bat, is how the world changes, and so there's so much beautiful consonance, albeit maybe a 20th century consonance in the music, but then there's all these opportunities for tension too, and dissonance, right? And so talk about those spots where you got to get a little darker, like, The Librarian is an example, or Amphibious Assault is an example. Talk about that if you would.
I think the sounds that are like kind of dissonant and dark, those all originated from experimenting with different sounds that we were recording. At that point, we were going out into. At that point, we moved to Taipei, and we were stuck from COVID, and so we started living here, and then we went out and just started recording a lot of sounds around, because there's a lot of good sounds around here, and so I started playing around with all these samples, and so we got like Janice found some stray cats, and they were like the meows, recorded their meows, and we got like strange creaking sounds and things, and it was just fun playing with like sound design and eventually coming up with these interesting textures and sounds, and like we kind of, for some tracks we use that as like a starting point, and then let that evolve into the musical piece.
Okay.
But then for other tracks, like the Librarian, that was piano first as the origin. That was you.
Yeah, that one was piano first.
That has a sketch, right? I think there's a sketch for that one.
Yeah. And we did end up using some samples of choir that, because my dad sings in a choir, and we'd always go to his performances, and then just like taking just this short snippet and turning into part of the textures for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of the piano stuff, that was like, well, at first I thought like doing boss music was really intimidating. Like I didn't feel like I could do it. I didn't feel like I had the right energy for it. But then I felt like that's when I started going to the piano, and I don't know, it kind of, since it's my oldest instrument, and it was how I learned to express myself musically first. I don't know, it kind of tapped open something there that I didn't know that I had, like a channel into some sort of flurry and stormy feelings that could come out only on piano at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the boss music, that all the ones you did they're very like character focused. Like it felt like it was about the boss itself and their emotions, more so than, I think when I first think about boss music, I just think of like intensity and action. But it was really refreshing to see you take it in like a more like dramatic, emotional direction.
Yeah, I that was something that's one of the reasons why I thought I couldn't do it at first, because I didn't think I didn't like had the like intensity and like action. But I felt like, okay, what I do know and what I can tap into is that when someone is in an argument or someone is fighting with somebody, there's a lot of emotions, and everybody has something they're fighting for or protecting, self-protective in a way. And that's something that I could relate to. And yeah.
Yeah.
And then you would, like, for those tracks, you would create the piano line and then turn it into the track, and I would try to add some of the rhythm and intensity to keep it feeling boss-like.
Yeah.
And then the ones where I started out with, they were more like rhythmic focused, and then but then you were able to help me put more character into them by adding in piano lines, like in the Siege and then the Garden Night one, the Night.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. I really loved the track called "Forgot to Forget," and I love how the theme comes back in there. Do you remember that track?
Yeah.
Yes. Tell me about that. So beautiful.
That's the piano one, right? I get it mixed up with the other. There's Remember to Remember, Forget to Forget.
Forget to Forget.
Oh wait, yeah.
They're both wonderful, so you feel free to talk about them both.
I think if that's the piano one that I'm thinking of, then it was definitely based on the main overworld one, Memories and Memories.
Yeah.
We wanted to have just a quieter, like more low-key version of it that we could kind of crossfade between. I think that was used in the indoor areas, like when you go into the house or into other quieter spaces, and it would just fade between the two tracks. And since it kept the same BPM and the same melody, it would sound pretty seamless. Yeah, it was fun just focusing on piano more.
I think, so Carbon Forest, there's like a pan flute or something in there, or a flute. Maybe it's just flute. Tell me about that. Is that you, Janice, playing?
That's the Xiao.
Yeah. Oh yeah, when we were here, we started getting some Chinese instruments to record to, and we Janice was taking lessons for zhonghu, which is like the erhu, the 2-string Chinese fiddle.
Yes.
And I went with her to the class, and one of the teachers there carves his own xiao, which is like a Chinese flute. And so I got one, and I'm not very good at playing it, but I was just like,
he gave you a crash course.
Yeah. I just recorded myself
lesson.
playing a bunch of sounds in it, and like was able to like use those sounds to make some textures and to make the flute that you hear in that. And yeah, that one was fun because I didn't really know where I was going with it. I was just like putting all these elements together and hoping that it would kind of evoke that area's feel.
Mm.
Yeah.
But the flute was, a big part of it.
Yeah. Felt like it made it sound pretty spacious in there.
Yeah. Super cool sound. One of the really creepy ones is What They Kept From Us. That one gets pretty dark.
This one was from the Siegert area.
Yeah.
It was actually like a few different sections of the area, and on the soundtrack we combined them into one thing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, because that's a really dark part of the game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like one of the sort of turning points narratively. Like you're not really sure why you're there in this world, and then that part is one where the narratives are quite strong, where it tells you lots more.
Yeah, that's like
it's really dark,
kind of climactic.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then Ghostfield. I think that might be my favorite track. It's just heartbreakingly beautiful when the piano comes in, and I love. Yeah, so talk to me about Ghostfield. I just love that track.
Yeah, that track was written for a sort of darker area, and I think for that one specifically, I guess I feel like where there's darkness for me, there's always also, not always, but often some element of like not light, but there's something there that was lost. And I think that was important for us to show in Ghostfield because of the area it represents. So that would be the piano would be representing that what was once there perhaps, that now isn't in there anymore.
Yeah. That one was interesting to work on because we used like really low, deep sounds, and I think I didn't quite know like what the correct way to mix that and use that was, but it was. I need to peek at it. I can't forget the. Oh yeah. A lot, like there's lots of.
Yeah.
I can't remember working.
That's so funny.
Well,
it's okay.
I remember working on it.
Okay, there's a secret.
Okay, there's a secret.
I was just wasn't sure.
We're not sure if we can talk about it.
Oh, don't. Yeah, save it. Don't. We will not. No spoilers.
No, we can tell. Sorry, we were being so awkward about it. But,
no, not at all.
Edited.
It was originally written for a different game.
Okay.
As like a test, but then it ended up not getting used. It was for like a very dark area as well, and then, but it was like pretty different. But then,
I think it fits Tunic better.
Yeah, it ended up fitting Tunic a lot better, and so we were able to use it as like the the beginning, and then we like modified it a bunch to make it work because we spent a lot of time on it. And
yeah, it was a really stressful time working on that one.
yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So we're just glad to be able to like give it a new life. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, it paid off. Yeah.
Yeah.
find a little home.
It's a beautiful track. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a beautiful track. I also absolutely loved Ocean Glaze. There's just some really like reckless abandon like arpeggiation with the synths and stuff. So talk about Ocean Glaze. That's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was all you.
I don't remember much about working on it.
You did it in like a reckless abandonment sounds right.
Yeah, reckless abandonment sounds about right.
In like a flurry.
It was a bit of a flurry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because we needed it's actually like pretty. It's pretty different tonally from a lot of the rest of the soundtrack. It's like a bit more fun and happy.
Mm-hmm.
And we like I think we just didn't know what to. It just needed to sound like something beach like kind of. But then it couldn't be like too happy or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were just like playing around, and I think I just kept telling you to add more arpeggios or something. And then we like started adding more, and then there's like a climactic part. There's a climactic part in the middle where like everything kind of flourishes, solves up. Mm-hmm. And that was around where I said like just like keep doing it, and then you just went crazy with it. I
think that's where a little bit of my own personal music making came through. Was I do like doing reckless abandon in my own work, just pushing myself outside of every whatever is might be expected to sound like, and just breaking those rules to see what could come out of it. And I think that part where the arpeggiators just kind of go a little bit nuts is a little bit representative of what I do in my own work.
Because I think there's this sort of tension when working with game music is like ostensibly you're not supposed to go too crazy with making it like if it's just like part of the background of a level, then if it's like really dynamic and like really with big changes in tone and energy, then it's not supposed to. That's like people aren't expecting that. But it's also like hard to repress the urge to make it like that. As you know, as an artist, you just want to like put yourself in there, and I think being a little generous to ourselves with that, I think was really freeing. Like I kind of just accepted like let's just do what we want to do, and then I think we'll know if it's not going to fit in the game. Like I don't think we went overboard with it. I think it still fits.
Oh yeah, no, it's great.
And also that track was interesting because what they wanted to do on this audio sound design side was they wanted to layer it so that as you progress through the area, more and more of the track is revealed. So I felt like doing something dynamic in that, more dynamic and a little bit more reckless there was okay because as an area, because it was being revealed to you slowly. So it wouldn't seem as dynamic because you're not hearing it all at once. You hear the first loop of it and then your mind gets used to it. And so then it gives you something new to listen to every time with more.
Yeah. I guess, it definitely made sense for that.
Craziness. Yeah.
Talk about the main theme, how that unfolded, because that I love as well. I mean, I just, it's very
the hardest one.
Kind of like you're just swinging in a hammock, kind of. I love it.
That one was pretty hard.
Really?
Yeah. We were kind of putting it off because we knew like eventually at some point we'd need a main theme, but it was hard to figure out like, I guess it would make more sense to do it first or early on and then have things come out of that. But we had put it off a bit, and eventually it ended up being like there's the main trailer that we
were working on a track for the launch trailer, but then we put so much into that track, and in the end that just became the main theme.
It had the pieces we needed for the main theme, and we either used it for we had to we still modified it a bunch, but it ended up being because the trailer is kind of there's this progression to it. There's it gets you into it, attention getting, and then it builds into something, kind of tells its own little story in a small snippet. We thought that kind of fits a main theme too, and we
had a bit of a disagreement during that track, I remember.
Oh, yeah. Because I wanted to I had a theme in mind for it, and I was kind of attached to it, but then Janice had another theme in mind, and it was a lot better than mine. Mine was really bad, but at the time,
No, it wasn't.
No, it was. But at the time, we were really overworked and didn't know what sounded good anymore. At least I couldn't tell anymore. But you pushed for yours, and I'm really glad you did, because it's so much better than what I was doing. And I think that was one of the tracks where we kind of got to learn how to figure out who should be taking over for that, or who should have their identity in the track.
Well, I felt like we learned how to communicate through working on that track, because we both felt so bad if we said I don't really like this, that we would never say that about each other's work. So when we were okay, I know he feels very strongly about this, but I'm not feeling it. So finding so many ways to beat around the bush, and in the end, we just had to come right out and say it, and say oh, okay. I don't know. It was just we had to, I think we worked out a way that would be okay. And we were okay, who feels strongly for this section right now? And then whoever felt strongly, we would go with their vision. Yeah. And then, so that one has And
I think that worked for us because we both trust each other in, as people, of course, and as also musically, we trust each other's tastes. And so I was just oh, well, I guess, I trust you'll do a good job with it. So my ears kind of burnt out. So I'll see where the direction you're taking it was going. And it was definitely the right call.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find each other?
Oh, in general?
Yeah.
Through music, in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of complicated.
Do you listen to his soundtrack for Dust Force? Is that where when you said you listened? Okay.
That was my first one.
Okay.
And then that was in 2012, and then Janice she was playing her family was playing the game.
Yeah.
And then she overheard the soundtrack and liked it, and then found it on Bandcamp.
I bought it, and you can send a message when you buy it. So I just said I loved it, and if there would ever be a physical version coming out, I would love to know. And then just classic messages people get after.
Well, and because you released your first album on Bandcamp too, so when I saw the message, I could click back and see her music, and I liked it a lot. And then just slowly over the years, we were emailing more and worked on some music.
On something together, and then
eventually, Janice came to, because she was in Toronto and I was in Portland, and so she came over to Seattle we basically played music, game music at a festival, and that's when we first met in person. Mm-hmm. And then immediately got married.
Immediately.
No, it was a little bit longer, but it was pretty soon after that.
So how did you end up in Taipei? Because you said something earlier as well, you went to visit and got stuck there. I don't know if I heard that right, but how did that happen?
So we got married in 2019, and then after that we came to Taipei to visit with his side of the family, and that was January 2020. And we were only going to be here for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then our flights obviously were all canceled and everything. So
we ended up getting stuck, but then we liked it a lot here, and it ended up being like, the safest place to be during COVID. And
also legally we could be here together.
Yeah, because we just got married, and Janice is Canadian, I'm American, so we're still in the process of like figuring out visa stuff. But since we got stuck here and they kept like extending our stay here, it was like the one place we could just stay together and not worry about it. So, and plus we just liked it here a lot.
Yeah.
And
it's really inspiring.
Yeah, so we just decided to stay, and we're still here.
Yeah, what is it like there? I mean, I obviously just know nothing about Taipei or Taiwan or anything. I mean, I know some things, but I mean, what's the city like, and what do you like about it?
It's so dense in the city, where you just can see people's lives spilling out into the street. Or they'll just leave their doors open so you can just look right inside. But you don't need to look inside someone's home to see them living. And you can hear so much. You can hear everybody living their lives. And it's, but also the great thing about it, especially in Taipei, is that it's kind of in a valley. So it's surrounded by mountains. So you have this density of people. And then for us, like 10-minute walk away, it's the quiet of the mountains. And so we can teeter between both and find inspiration in everyday life, watching people do things like doing their laundry, or, just doing their shopping at the market, or like just sitting on their steps, having a smoke, or massaging each other. I don't know. You can see everything. Yeah. You can hear babies crying. You can hear people having fights. You can hear people frying rice and playing piano, and you just hear everything. And so there's always life happening.
Yeah, it feels so alive. Mm-hmm. Like in the mountains and the forest itself spills into the city, because like every crevice is filled with plants and
it's
vegetation.
A tropical island, so it's so humid and wet. So it also looks as if this place could never be overrun by humans. Like nature will always be stronger, because it's just, you can't fight it. Like,
it's like half reclaimed, and
it's
growing back as people are living.
Always growing back.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
If people were to disappear for even like, a couple weeks, this place would just be green again.
Yeah.
Completely.
Wow. And so is the weather mild year round then? Oh, okay.
It's hot and humid.
Yeah.
All the time?
It's good during the winter, but this winter has been pretty hot.
Okay.
But there's like a good sweet spot from like November to April.
Yeah, May to April.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's like a really nice time. It's right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you speak Chinese too then, right?
Yes. Well, I spoke it my parents spoke it to me as a kid, so I have I can speak it, but my vocabulary isn't that great, but I can still get by.
Okay.
And Janice has been learning because
I speak a little bit.
Because she spoke Cantonese.
And is it more closer to Mandarin? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, mostly Mandarin.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And there's probably not a ton of crossover between Cantonese and Mandarin, is there?
Reading wise, it's the same.
Okay.
Ish. Not necessarily, because there are different words that we use that compared to you.
A lot of the sounds it's not completely different. It's similar.
It's not completely different, but it's also not completely the same.
Yeah.
Kind of like a little bit more extreme version of like having different accents, English accents. So not only is the accent different, but you also have different colloquial terms.
Yeah.
So you're definitely at an advantage learning Mandarin, knowing Cantonese.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Cool. Oh, it's just so fascinating. And what a neat story that you just ended up liking it there, and you're like, well, let's just stay. So did you have to like make a trip back and get things, or did you just
you didn't go back until this last fall.
Okay.
Not this year, but the year before.
Okay.
Yeah, like 3 years later.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, it just happened that we were in the middle of like a big transition in our lives, because we just got married and we're like moving out of our...
We were finishing up Tunic, so any big things were kind of off the table.
Yeah.
We can't really...
And we had moved out of our apartments, so it was kind of the perfect time to just switch. pick a new place.
Also, all the borders were closed.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
even if we wanted to, we couldn't.
Right. Wow. Okay, well, let's talk more about Tunic. Thank you for indulging my questions. I could ask you 1,000 more just about those things, but we'll go back to your music. And the fact that you do both have more music up on Bandcamp outside of Tunic. How did you get connected to work on Tunic? How did that happen?
I had Andrew, who's the main developer on Tunic. He emailed me in 2015, I think, or late 2014, something like that, because he liked the music I made for Dust Force and for I made the soundtrack for a documentary about a Double Fine game, and
Oh, nice.
he really
Which
liked
one?
it. It's called Immerse. It's for the
Cool.
Double Fine Adventure is the name of the documentary.
Okay.
And he was listening to that when working on the early versions of Tunic, and he sent me like some short videos of Tunic gameplay, and he put the music to it. He said this is what he was like listening to and what inspired him. And so it was kind of out of the blue, but when I saw it, I was immediately drawn to it because I could kind of tell from I could tell from the little bits he showed me that like he really knew what he was doing, and he like had like the elements that I think would be someone really good to work with and would do a really good job with the game.
Yeah.
He was like he had a good eye for the design and the game feel, and was also good at like putting it together. And then most importantly seemed like the type of person that could actually like work efficiently enough to actually finish the game, which is pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great opportunity. But I was like in the middle of working on something else, so I thought maybe I'll need more time to work on it. But that ended up being okay because the game ended up taking forever to finish, anyways.
Yeah.
It did take a long time.
And then you joined about halfway through.
I joined about halfway through. At first, I did do one of the tracks. This was Terrence was telling me about Tunic and over email, and he was sending me some like chords he was playing around with, and then but he like typed them out. I'm like, I can't hear this, so I played it out and then ended up writing a track, and then that was like the first one that ended up being on Tunic, but it was like we didn't think of it as a Tunic track at the time.
Mm-hmm. Which one is that?
Secret Legend.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then, but I didn't start working on the soundtrack with him until maybe a few years ago.
Yeah. Because you started...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You started helping me with it because I needed a lot of help with like figuring out some melodic stuff, piano stuff. But then it just eventually became like, I realized there's so many tracks that needed like emotion and character, and I was so like focused on making atmosphere and texture and a sense of space that I was having trouble finding how to like add the character and emotion that you were really good at bringing in on the tracks. And eventually I realized like I don't know if I can do this without you working on it more. And so
it was a very gradual process.
It just like sort of
interesting
ramped up, and then next thing we knew, like you ended up making like exactly half the tracks, or like the amount of like time spent was like equal to half the tracks worth of music.
I didn't want to like, at first I just felt like I didn't want to involve myself because like this is your project, and like you know when it comes to creative work it's very personal to us. But little by little, I think also at the beginning, because of that head mindset, I also felt like when he did ask for my help, I was like, okay, I have to write like Terrence writes, and I have to try to emulate his voice. But it wasn't until maybe many, many tracks later when you said, I just want you to do your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really helpful to hear.
Yeah.
And you also found it freeing to make music that wasn't. You said you found it freeing to like make music that when you're in a secondary position helping us.
Yeah, it was really freeing to kind of work under somebody instead of just working. I have to be the one who has the vision for this track, and if I don't finish it, it's not going anywhere. Whereas like working in collaboration as well as working under somebody else's vision, both like yours for the music and then the Andrew's for the whole game, that was really freeing, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so fascinating. I mean, there are, many examples through all of music of composing duos, right? And I've interviewed many in games too, and situations where they don't work together at all or where they totally do, and that's a wonderful thing. Let's talk about some of your individual music, because you have songs too that you've written, and Janice, your voice is so lovely. So I just, it's really beautiful. You just burst out laughing like, no, it is. I love it. And so you can hear some of that on Bandcamp, and, but I know you've also done other soundtracks individually, right? Like Janice, you've done a film or two or something along those lines. So talk about that, if you would.
Mostly I've done a couple like short films, and I did contribute to a soundtrack for a feature film, but I'm not sure how much of it ended up making into the end. And those were all really fun projects to kind of push myself in directions that when I take on projects, I think I'm looking for something to push me either into doing something that I've never done before, or to do something that I completely want to indulge in. And so with all of those, that was it. And I think one of them was I worked on a VR documentary, and that was really, really fun. And intimidating, because I have no idea what a VR documentary is going to be like, because It's not a film because it's VR in the sense that it's interactive. So is it like, are we looping things, or are we doing, one cut, narrative tracks? So that was a really interesting challenge to work with the filmmakers on that. And then usually I was going through a stage when I was working on those where anybody who came by and says, I want to work on this, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I don't know what's going to happen. And it was mostly like, I want this sound, but I think that experimental part of me came out, even though I would emulate the sound that they were looking for. There was one short film where I was like, I want to write a piano track that's really boring. Like I wanted the challenge of writing one that's really boring. Like it's in the sense that it's not trying to get your attention. And that was for a film that was about a man who was basically, I'm not sure if he was paralyzed. I don't remember. He was paralyzed, but he was bedridden. So I'm like, okay, well, it's kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
So, like, yes, there's going to be emotion stifled in there, but I also felt like it'd be apt to try to include that sort of monotony in the music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you both always kind of wanted to be composers? I mean, you were making music before you met each other, so clearly, but at what age did you start writing your own stuff? I mean, I think, Terrence, you kind of addressed that a little bit, but yeah.
I actually wasn't meaning to go into to do music. I studied computer science. I wanted to do the game development.
You still do.
And,
yeah. Take note, everyone.
Sort of ended up going that direction. I ended up working with some friends and doing the music for their game, and that was really fun. And after that, I wanted to then we started working on on more games, and I was like excited to like do more programming and work on the game design and stuff. But then I worked on Tunic, and that ended up being a really big project. But now I'm finally like finding the time to work on my own, or work on a new game together, and really focus on the game design part and the programming side. But eventually it'll need music too, so I think we'll both have fun with that.
Yeah. But what about Dustforce
then? Doing both. Dustforce, I did the music and audio for that, but I also helped a little bit with like some of the web development and just some bits and pieces around it. But it was fun doing like both, or it's fun having both programming and music as like two opposite types of disciplines I can work on, because they kind of, it feels like they exercise different muscles in the brain. And so when I get like really burnt out on one side, I can try something on the other side. And then it's I just kind of enjoy being able to switch off because they're so different.
Yeah.
I thought it's really funny because he, like most people, will program for work and do music as a hobby, but it's the opposite for him.
Yeah.
That's pretty great.
Very lucky guy.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Janice, how about you? When did you start, composing?
When I was really little, I wanted to compose music. And I felt like if there was a job, I would love to compose music. But I felt like, okay, this sounds a little bit cliche, but I mean, obviously when I was little, the only composers I knew were old and men. And I was like, okay, well, that's not available for me. That's not a path that's available for me. So I think I started writing my own music, but just like vocal guitar music, because I still wanted to do music professionally one day. So I started doing that as a teenager. And I felt like, I have to choose something that I can do, and I can, in terms of like, if I wanted to do it, I can physically do it. So if I'm doing a show, then because it's very hard to ask for help, I have to be like, okay, well, I have to write guitar music because at least that I'm self-sufficient that way. But I didn't really like the aspect of it that's very much like, I didn't mind performing, but the aspect of like kind of putting myself front and center, and that comes with being a performer, is it's not just the work. Sometimes you also have to market yourself. And I think that's the hard part for me. So the more and more I'd compose instrumental music on and off throughout the years, but never really took it too seriously. And then until I sort of felt like there was permission to do that, I think later on in years when I could just be like, okay, I don't need to use my voice. I don't need to have to perform these pieces in order to make music. I can just make what I want. And that's kind of how it evolved.
Amazing. It's been wonderful talking with you and hearing your music. What else do you want to say about Tunic or anything else, really? Anything I forgot to ask, or that you wish people would ask you about Tunic that no one's asked yet?
I feel like there is something I'm trying to think. It was just such a like, I feel like I put so much, like near the end of it, we're working really hard, and I felt like we put so much of ourselves, our energy and our emotional energy into it. And it was really cathartic finishing it and like just finally being done. And there's something really exciting about that type of work, because and then like at the end you get to like show a bunch of people. I feel really lucky to be able to work on something like that, because for like normal types of music, it's pretty hard to get your music heard by people if you're just like releasing something on Bandcamp. But with a game, like you get the audience of the game itself, and you're giving them, if the game is good, you're giving them like an environment where they are receptive and to hearing your music and will like enjoy the music. And yeah, it's just, I just find it really, I guess I just feel really lucky to be able to work on game music and to like have those opportunities.
Yeah, I know it's not easy for a lot of people out there making music, but I mean, I was there before Tunic. I'm still there. Outside of game music, my personal music doesn't really get much traction, and it doesn't make me feel too bad because that's just the way it's always been. And I think the hard part of it is, how do you keep going and not take it as if that means that my work is useless? And I think I just have to remember that it's not about how big your music is, but like if there's 40 people listening to your music, if there's one person listening to music, you're changing their, like, you're impacting their environments. And it's really important to that one person, or it's really important to those 3 people. And that kind of makes me feel like it's rather, it's not like quantity, but yeah. Quality of listening.
One last question that I love to ask, because clearly you're both gamers, so what are you playing right now?
I just finished Mr. Sun's Hat Box. It's really, really, really good. It was really addicting.
Nice.
I mean, I wouldn't say I finished it because there's probably more to it, but I've passed that point and I'm probably going to keep going.
Nice.
I still religiously play PUBG.
Yes, nice.
And I just find I play with some friends, and I find it to be there's just something very exciting about like going in and with some friends and like not knowing what's going to happen and going on this grand adventure and probably dying and failing, but
it really is religious for you.
It is, yeah.
Play every Sunday?
Yeah, we call it Sunday service.
Sunday service?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah. No, that's wonderful. I never did. I think maybe I only tried PUBG a time or two, but Fortnite I did a little bit too. Never in a massive way, but enough. And if you do make it to the end, it feels amazing. It is a special accomplishment in its own right, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially with friends.
Well, especially with friends, like that's. I mean, I still play Destiny, and it's because I like to connect with friends that way. That's like how we talk. We almost never talk outside of it. We do, but you know what I mean? Yeah, that's what. It's fun. It's a social thing. And you're just getting to blow stuff up in the meantime, and it's the best. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Well, you two are also the best. Again, this has been great, and love your music. Cannot wait to hear what more you're doing. I strongly encourage everyone to check out all of your other music individually as well. There's just some wonderful things there. So thank you so much for meeting with me so late in your day and making this happen. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for talking with us.
And waking up early.
Yeah.